Hey everyone, this is Rabbitearsblog and welcome to my TV episode Roundup series. So before I get into this video, I would like to remind everyone that new videos will be posted up every Sunday. It can be Sunday morning, Sunday night, or Sunday evening, depending on when I can get the videos posted up. And if you haven't seen any videos posted up during the week, that must mean there was a bit of TV or movie news released during the week that I wanted to cover, so those will be considered special videos. But new videos will be posted up every Sunday, and every Monday I will have the TV episode Roundup series where I go over all the TV episodes I review for the week, and I go from worst pick of the week to best pick of the week, and that will be posted up every Monday. So now let's get into this week's TV episode Roundup series. So this week has been kind of good. I had two 4.5 star episodes, which is really good, and one 4 star episode. I do have a low pick this week, but yeah, this has been a pretty average week for me in terms of TV episode reviews. So now let's start with number 5, the worst pick of the week, and that was the Inhumans Havoc in the Hidden Land. So what happens in this episode is that the royal family of the humans end up going back on their planet Attilia and Adeline. Adeline. Anyway, they go back on their home planet and they try to confront Maximus and tell him, if you don't step down right now and give us back the throne, we're gonna have to put you down. And Maximus is like, no, I don't care if you're gonna put me down or not. I'm not giving up the throne. So the humans are like, all right, if you have it your way. And then meanwhile, throughout this episode, we see that Karnak wants to bring back Gorgon back to life since Gorgon in the last episode got killed. So they're gonna try. Karnak wants to find a way to bring back Gorgon back to life, and that's pretty much the gist of this episode. So I thought this episode was okay. My biggest issues with this episode though was that it seems like the moment the humans or the Ward family went back on their own planet, their home planet, all the character development they went through on Earth just kind of got thrown out of the window. Like they felt like flat characters again once they came back to their home planet, and I didn't really like that. Like Karnak is kind of back to being a little unlikable. Well, not so much as he was in the first episode. There is some character development, and this episode does show that he has changed a lot from when we first saw him in the first episode. So I do like that change in Karnak. I take back when I said Karnak is unlikable, but I do like the fact that he actually retained some of his character development in the last 2 episodes, and again, the episode, I liked the fact that he was able to keep all that. And then I like the fact that there was more focus on Black Bolt and Medusa's relationship. I like how Medusa's like, Black Bolt, you gotta start telling me everything. I'm not just gonna like translate everything for you all the time. You need to let me in on your plans so I can help you out whenever we need to. And I like that Medusa tries to step up to the plate and try to do things alongside husband. So I like to see where that relationship is going in the next few episodes. But yeah, overall, this episode was kind of slow for one thing, and then the characters went back to being very flat. I am interested to see what happens at the end of this episode, but yeah, this episode was kind of average compared to the last 2 episodes, which I felt like were much stronger in the terms of character development and stuff like that. So overall, I gave the Humans episode a 3.75 stars, and that was my number 5 pick. So moving on to number 4, and that is Ghosted the Machine. So what happens in this episode is that Max and Leroy end up going on a mission where they go to this elite country club, and Max is disguised as a caddy, while Leroy is the one who's doing the golfing, and they try to figure out what's going on at this elite country club where there's this one member of the club that's like has the power to remain young for so many years, and Max and Leroy are trying to figure out what's going on there, who's doing all that. And also they bring along Annie on this mission, so this is one of those episodes we start seeing Annie get more into action. So that's pretty much what happens in this episode. So my thoughts about this episode is that I thought this was a hilarious episode. I thought it was a really nice and fun episode, especially if you watch a whole week of mostly serious shows. It's nice to have a show that's pretty fun loving for the most part, and this episode was pretty fun loving. And I like the fact that they gave Annie some focus in this episode, because in the last few episodes episodes, she didn't go on a lot of missions with Max and Leroy, and it's nice to see the three of them together in this episode. And we start to see that Max and Annie have some kind of growing relationship with each other. Like they become more like friends in this episode, and I really enjoy seeing all that develop in this episode. And I like the fact that we see a softer side to Leroy. As last few episodes he was kind of annoyed with Max, excuse me, but in this episode it seems that he's softened up a bit, and I like seeing that development between his and Max's relationship. So this was a pretty fun episode to watch. So overall, I gave this episode, The Ghosted, 4 stars, and that was number 4. Moving on to number 3, and that was Kevin Probably Saves the World, Brutal Acts of Kindness. So what happens in this episode is that Kevin ends up depleting all of his bank accounts so he could do all these acts of kindness, like try to do all these deeds for all these people. And then he comes across this one woman who is like having trouble trying to pay for medicine for her son because her son needs insulin. She doesn't have enough money to pay for her son, and Kevin's trying to give her his own money to help her like pay for the insulin that she needs for her son. But the lady's like saying, no, I don't need your help and stuff like that. And Kevin starts to realize that the lady was having problems with her job, and her husband had left her, and therefore she's like working so many jobs just to support her son. And that's pretty much the gist of Kevin's side story. And then meanwhile, we see that Reese, Kevin's niece, is like trying to figure out more about Kevin, because she starts seeing Kevin doing all these weird stuff in the last few episodes, and she's wondering to herself, what's going on with my uncle? Why is he does he have superpowers or something like that? Why is he doing all these weird things? And the ending of this episode was really shocking. I won't tell you what happens at the end of this episode, but I will admit I was really shocked by what happened at the end of this episode. So what are my thoughts about this episode? I thought this episode was actually fantastic. Like, it was probably one of the best episodes I've seen of the show so far, and I think it did a really good job at having Kevin trying to get used to his role as trying to take care of all these people. And then probably the best part of this episode was seeing how Reese is starting to realize what's going on with Kevin, and how she's trying to figure out more about Kevin and what is he up to. I am interested in that storyline because I do wonder about how Kevin's going to tell his sister and his niece about who he really is, and why he's doing all these weird things. So I am curious to see where his storyline is going to go afterwards, once Reese, and if he ever tells Reese and his sister about what's going on. And the ending of this episode really leaves on a huge cliffhanger, so I'm really excited to see what's going to happen next week's episode. But this episode was fantastic. So overall, I gave this episode 4.5 stars, and that was number 3. So moving on to number 2, and that is the Orville Into the Fold. So what happens in this episode is that Dr. Finn ends up going with Isaac and her sons to this camping trip or something like that. But it turns out that they end up getting trapped into this void that ends up sucking them into this planet. And Dr. Finn ends up getting separated from Isaac and her 2 sons. Excuse me. And while they're all on that planet, they all discover that there's been some kind of disease going around the planet and is affecting all the people on that planet. And one of the people ends up kidnapping Dr. Finn in this episode. So Dr. Finn has to try to figure out a way to get back to her sons and Isaac before the disease gets to them, or something bad happens to her sons and Isaac. So what are my thoughts about this episode? I thought this episode was very well done. I like the fact that we have an episode that focuses on Dr. Finn and Isaac. We did have a few moments with Isaac in the last few episodes, but we rarely had any episodes that focus a lot on Dr. Finn as a character. And I like the fact that this episode focuses a lot on Dr. Finn and the fact that she has 2 sons, which I am curious about. Like, I was wondering how she got her 2 sons, and the episode didn't really allude to it that much. But anyway, I like the fact that Dr. Finn would do anything she can to protect her 2 boys from whatever's going on that planet. And I really like the Isaac moments in this episode, because in this episode it shows that Isaac is kind of incapable of understanding human emotions. So he'll say things to the boys like, oh, I'm pretty sure your mom didn't get eaten or whatever, or because if she did, there would be blood everywhere or pieces of her everywhere. And the boys are like, oh my god. So yeah, I really like the Isaac scenes in this episode, because it shows that even though he's incapable of understanding human emotions. You can see in this episode he's trying to understand about human emotions when he's spending so much time with Dr. Finn's son. So I really like the fact that we get to see that side of Isaac, and I wonder if later episodes will start exploring more about how Isaac handles his human emotions in later episodes. And again, this was a pretty good episode for Dr. Finn. So overall, I gave this episode, The Orville, 4.5 stars, and that was number 2. So moving on to number 1, and my pick of the week is The Gifted Box In. So what happens in this episode is that Jace, as it turns out, the big bad of the season, the one who's in charge of the mutant the Sentinel program, he's like going all out trying to get the excuse me. He's all out trying to get the mutants, and he's trying to find their secret locations and stuff like that. And in this episode, it turns out that Polaris and Marco end up capturing Jace, and they try to force him to they try to ask him questions about what's going on with the mutant program, and why has one of their friends who was captured by the program, why has the Sentinel program brainwashed his friend, their mutant friend. And Jace is like saying, I'm not going to tell you all that, and even I don't know about all that. So they had to bring in Dreamer to the mutant who could manipulate people's memories to find out more information about what's going on with the mutants being captured by the Sentinel program. And meanwhile, in this episode, we see that the Strucker family is trying to take care of the mutants who got shot in the last episode. So we see that Andy and Lauren and Kate are like all trying to help this mutant who got shot in the last episode and prevent him from bleeding to death. And then also what happens in this episode is we see that Blank is starting to remember, or she's starting to figure out that all the memories between her and Johnny are all fake. So she's like going up against Dreamer saying, why did you manipulate my memory and tell me that I was in love with Johnny when I never was in love with Johnny? And that's pretty much what happens in this episode. So my thoughts about this episode is that I thought this episode was very well done. It's not very action-packed compared to last week's episode, but there was a lot of really great character moments in this episode, and I like the fact that Kate and pretty much the Strucker family are trying to help out the mutants any way they can, and I like that development with the Strucker family. I also like the fact that in this episode, Reese, who was just captured last episode, but was able to come back to his family again, is trying to regain trust among the mutants, because before he was the one who was prosecuting all the mutants, and after he found out that his own kids were mutants, he's like saying, I'm gonna try to help you guys the best way I can. I know you guys don't trust me because I used to work with the I used to persecute mutants, but I want to help you guys out and prove to you guys that I'm not the bad guy. I just didn't know about the situation with mutants until I found out my own kids were mutants. So I like the fact that in this episode Reese tries to help out all the mutants the best way he can, and I enjoyed seeing that character progression with his character. So I think this episode was really great for progression of all the characters so far, and I'm interested to see what's going to happen with the fall between Blink and Dreamer in the future episodes. What's going to happen between her and Johnny. So that kind of episode is pretty interesting for her, but for me. But I'm glad that this didn't turn into a love triangle thing like I was thinking it was going to be between Johnny, Dreamer, and Blink. And I'm glad that they kind of resolved it in this episode, because I was like, oh, I don't want another love triangle again. But yeah, I am interested to see where that storyline is going to go in future episodes. But overall, I really enjoyed this episode. I think it had a really good development with all the characters, and I gave this episode 4.75 stars, and that was my pick of the week. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Those are all the shows I watched for this week. Have you seen any of these shows? Did you enjoy these shows? And what was your worst pick of the week and your best pick of the week for all the TV shows you watch? Please feel free to comment below, and don't forget to follow me on Twitter so I can keep you updated on any videos I post up. And also, like my Facebook page, Rabbitearsblog's Best Comments. Hope you enjoyed this video. This is Rabbitearsblog, and I'll see you later.